Just muted my mic. Hold on. I need to... Okay, hold on. Hold on, I need to tell Amanda to come here for... I don't know how long it's gonna take me to explain what's happening. I don't know how long to tell her I'll be here for. Amanda, it's time. It's time. Also, shout out to the Tea Party music playing in the background, but I can't hear it. I hear the menu music from Xenoblade. Anyway. Okay, so real quick. So real quick. Hold on, I have... Oh my god, it's behind my character. But I'm just gonna make this bigger for a second. Okay, so basically... If you see here... It goes Xenoblade 1, and then Future Connected, and then 3, and then it goes to 2, and then Torna, and then the space station, and then back to 1. That's... Yeah. Okay, so basically that's... Yeah, it's just one giant loop. for these games. I'm not gonna go over X because X has nothing to do with the other 3 games. So anyway... Okay. You know, the key character in all of this is Klaus, and the key object is the conduit, by the way. Okay, so anyway, the conduit was found during the 21st century in Africa. Don't ask me. It was found in Africa. A strange object that can help bridge the gap between different dimensions. Scientists built many space stations for research purposes and kept the conduit in the one called Radamanthus. I think that's what it is. Radamanthus, which you explore in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. They also made a supercomputer known as the Trinity Processor designed to protect the conduit. During a scuffle around the same time period, Klaus activated the conduit, believing it a gift that needed to be used to change the world for the better. However, once it was activated, portals to other dimensions opened up, and one sucked half of his body through alongside another scientist, Galea. The half that remained became known as the Architect and features in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. The half in the new universe as Zanza from the first game, with Galea becoming Mayneth. As this is where things split and 2 concurrent stories play out, the I can't say words. Chronology is a little bit muddier, but what comes next is Torna. Oh yeah, it goes this way. It goes to the right. So it's the conduit and then Torna. If you go the other way, but if you go from the space station, it's 1 and then Future Connected and then 3. But if you go right, it's the space station, then Torna, and then 2 and then 3. Torna reveals a lot about some side characters from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Jin, Mithra, and Malos. It follows Laura and Malos 500 years before the events of the 2 main games, and their interactions with some key characters. There's not too much impact on the overarching timeline, mainly as it's so reliant on Xenoblade Chronicles 2 story, but it does show us how Pyra came to be. I guess that's cool. Yeah. The form came from Mithra having destroyed a Titan and seen a young boy die in a flash of rage and guilt. I mean, those of you that know which young boy I'm talking about. It was a sad time. Adam then took Pyra to his ship where Rex eventually meets her. Laura dies in the hands of a Malthus, and Jin becomes a flesh eater and the villain we ultimately see in the main game. it's not really that important to the overall story, at least, not yet. In the original world, where one half of Klaus remained, the events of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 takes place. In this world, the activation of the conduit stripped the Earth bare, so Klaus became known as the Architect, the only thing alive. He created life, and the Cloud Sea, and also gathered miniature vessels containing memories of all the Earth's life forms, which he scattered over the Cloud Sea. These would become known as the core crystals. A chemical reaction occurred with these, leading to the natural creation of the Titans. These Titans became massive, and civilizations sprouted up on them all over Alrest, the new name for Earth. Yes, Alrest is actually Earth. That's why the Africa thing makes sense, because Alrest is actually Earth. Don't worry about it. These civilizations built a story around the Architect, saying they used to live with him on the World Tree, in a place called Elysium. They were apparently expelled for some reason, and the Architect sent the Titans to save them. Then, far forwards in time, we get Rex, a salvager, who dives into the Cloud Sea to find goodies. After being offered a job to help out some drivers, people who wield blades by connecting their core crystal, if you don't know what a driver is, he connects with Pyra, a legendary blade known as the Aegis. Their adventure takes them towards the World Tree, attempting to reach the top, and ends with them meeting the Architect. As he explains what the conduit did to him and the world, he reveals that he's about to die. As he passes, the World Tree starts to crumble. Pyra's third form sacrifices herself to stop the world from being destroyed by the disintegrating tree. Rex and his crew barely escape, and then Pyra and her second form Mithra are revived right in front of them in separate bodies for the first time. And also, I may or may not have sobbed like a baby during the final cutscene of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. At the same time, we have the events of Xenoblade Chronicles. The world was either found or created by the activation of the conduit, with Zanza, which is one half of Klaus, and a fellow scientist Galea being pulled through a portal. It's unclear what the world was like there, but the Trinity processor, that supercomputer from earlier, did something that gave them the ability to create stuff. They used this power to build giant bodies to house their spirits in, as they weren't really in, corporeal form. After going through the portal, using the powers they gained through the Trinity processor, they each created life. Galea, who inhabits the body of Mechonis, created the Machina, while Zanza created the Telethia. From the Telethia, two races were formed, the Hyentia and the Giants. The Hyentia created the city Alchemoth on the head of the Bionis, while the Machina made the city Agniartha in the head of the Mechonis. This life they created wasn't just because the two gods were lonely, however. Zanza fed off the ether produced when his creations died, so it was vital that they kept doing exactly that. But the giant Arglus and the Machina leader Egil wanted to seek out other worlds, so Zanza had to stop this. Because he's a little bitch. Zanza did a few things. First, when Arglus wielded the Monado, he possessed him and used him to trigger the battle between Bionis and Mechonis. He also gave himself 3 disciples, Dixon, Alvis, and Lorethia. They'd be important later. Don't worry about it. I'll talk about those 3 later. This battle between Bionis and Mechonis sapped the life forces of Mayneth and Zanza until they had to stop and rest to regain their full power. Arglus was sealed away on Prison Island, along with the Monado, both of which contained bits of Zanza's soul. As Zanza wasn't fully defeated, Egil constructed the Mechon to wipe out all life on Bionis and stop Zanza from regaining enough ether. But those disciples from earlier were still alive, and they started to work towards reawakening him, because of course they did. We then get the events of the game, which start with Dixon finding Shulk in the Monado, and end with Shulk creating a new world at the behest of Alvis, who actually originates from the Trinity processor. This world is one without gods where the survivors can live in peace. The Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition DLC occurs right after the events of the main game, following Fiora's change into a human form and Shulk's wish for a world with no gods, where people can live in harmony. This time, however, our focus is Shulk and Melia. After the High Entian city of Alchemoth is spotted to have returned, Shulk and Melia head out to investigate. They meet a couple of Nothon and find out that the Fog King has overrun the city. By the way, fuck the Fog King. They meet some other characters, research the strange creature, and set out to defeat it. The important stuff is what happens at the end. After the Fog King is defeated, Shulk and the Nothon head back to Colony 9. Yes, 1 and 2 happen simultaneously. The important stuff is what happens at the end. After the Fog King is defeated, Shulk and the Nothon head back to Colony 9. However, Melia stays in Alchemoth, the High Entia return, and she's crowned Empress of the High Entia. Who knows what their future holds? Xenoblade Chronicles 3 opens with no obvious reference to either world of the Xenoblade timeline. Of course, there are hints. In fact, the opening cutscene is directly referenced at the end, as you clearly saw. But none of these is exactly crucial to the bigger picture. The first hint we get to any connection to previous entries is the interesting mechanical difference between Kevis and Agnes. The soldiers of Kevis charge up their arts by just waiting for the ring to fill up, just like in the first game. But soldiers of Agnes charge them up with auto attacks, just like Xenoblade Chronicles 2. The second hint is the two leaders of Kevis and Agnes. The leader of Kevis is a woman with a mask and small wings on her head. This is Melia from Xenoblade Chronicles 1. Then there's the other leader, a cat-eared mask wearer. This is Nia, a flesh-eater from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So, if the soldiers led by the character from the first game fight with a mechanical similarity to the first game's combat, while the soldiers led by the character from the second game fight with a mechanical similarity to the second game, would it be fair to assume these two worlds are crossing over? Dude, I told you there's gonna be like a multiverse shit happening in these games. This is literally multiverse. Well, that's exactly what was theorized early on, and it turned out to be true. Both Melia and Nia strove to save their split universes from refusing and wiping out each other completely, instead choosing to store their people's souls in a place called Origin. They would both build half, and after the universes refused, they could use Origin to rebuild. Instead, some sort of corruption in Origin led to Zed. Zed is literally a corruption thing, it's fine. Leader of Mobius, and also Mobius itself, to some extent, this is a tad unclear, but it's fine. To come to be. He froze the world's refusion and used Origin to repopulate a new world in between. Because apparently 3's world is entirely because Zed wanted to make his own world, but it still has a connection with the first two. These clones would fight endlessly to feed the power to maintain this freeze, with their birth and rebirth cycle mysteriously feeding these things called flame clocks, as well as Mobius itself. Zed's also expanded Mobius, offering some of these clones eternal life in return for upholding the situation. As Xenoblade Chronicles 3 heroes discover this, step by step, it leads them into a confrontation with Zed. While Zed fights hard to stop the end of this endless now, the heroes eventually succeed destroying Zed and Mobius. Except Triton. Triton is still there, it's fine. This leads to the original plan being set in motion, which, of course, leads to our 6 heroes being split up and returning to where they're from. Noah and Mio may not see each other again, but their worlds are saved in the process, and their freedom to choose is given back. So basically, that's it. That's how all three of them are correlated, it's fine. Because, okay, so here, technically 1 and 2 are happening simultaneously. 3 is technically happening at the same time as 1 and 2, except the worlds of 1 and 2 are frozen because Zed froze them. So technically, 3 is also happening at the same time as 1 and 2. You're welcome for confusing your smooth brain, Amanda. Hey, you're the one that wanted this. You're the one that wanted this explanation as to how they're all connected. It's your fault, anyway.